Alright, I'm back. And just so you guys see, it hasn't been that long since I posted the first part. Obviously, because I'm going to post two parts, like I said in the last video if you weren't paying attention. Before I start the video, make sure you join the Discord. Like and subscribe if you want to. I don't really care. If you like things like this, you'll probably like D&D. We do that inside of Discord. Just don't join in and be a complaining ass person, because like if you do that, I'm gonna be completely honest with you, it's probably not gonna go well for you. I'm gonna just say that. We're not rude, at least inside the fact of like just trying to insult you, but like don't come in the server trying to be disrespectful or anything like that. Remember that you are a member, which isn't to say that you're less of a human. It's just to say that, remember that and everything. So, that means you can get banned, or kicked, or timed. We usually don't just ban people off rip. But anyway, let me get back to the original point of the video. This is What If Deku Was an Uchiha Part 2. Last time that we left off on some, he kind of, went back home after he accidentally broke Bakugo's arm. So, after he gets home on some, right, he kind of, sits there as, Inko basically says to him on some, after she gets the phone call that she's very disappointed in him, and that, there was no point in resulting in violence. If you were strong enough to break his arm, you could be strong enough to avoid it. As, he kind of just says, he's sorry and, he will make sure it doesn't happen again. She says, good. As she kind of goes in to hug him, as she says, nonetheless, I am still glad that you're safe and that you didn't get, hurt at all. As, Izuku kind of just smiles on some, kind of, feeling a little proud that he didn't let the situation go, too far. Because with that whole situation, that could have gone a lot further than what, where it was taken. And to be completely frank, he doesn't know if he would have won that fight or not. Most likely not, but, he doesn't know that in character. But nah, so, look, right? Basically, after she says that she's going to get to making, dinner and everything like that, as she goes to walk off. So, after that whole situation happens, Izuku kind of decides to go back upstairs. And, what is it called? As he goes back upstairs, he kind of, begins to train, like, do push-ups, sit-ups, things like that. As he's thinking, since he got stronger overnight from something, he might as well keep his body in shape, because he doesn't want to just eat his way out of his perfect body. Especially if that dream was telling him something about trying to, try your best and becoming the best person that you could become, no matter what you were meant to be. Surpassing what you were meant to be and becoming something new, something better. So, whilst he's training, he kind of thinks about it. And he thinks about, the feeling that he had, basically on some, back when he was fighting Bakugo. As, when he's thinking about that memory, he basically, kind of has, like, it's confusing. He kind of, like, passes out, temporarily blacks out, as he imagines him putting up a sign and kind of like a cool, empowering type of energy slowly running up his body. As when he comes back into, consciousness on some, he kind of gets off the ground, kind of confused, because he was, just doing push-ups on some. As he kind of rubs his head, as he thinks, as he says, that seemed very similar to what I felt back when I was fighting against Bakugo. As he goes to sit down and basically, puts up, a hand seal on some shit. if you don't know what hand seal I'm talking about, he's putting up the tiger hand seal, the two tiger hand seals. Uh, he's not doing the singular one. As he closes his eyes and kind of just, begins to breathe inwards and outwards slowly until he eventually slowly begins to feel the energy running up his back. So he stops all of a sudden, just kind of shocked as he kind of looks around and he sees nothing, which shocks the absolute hell out of him. Alright, so after that whole situation, um, I ain't even gonna cap on something, right? He kind of closes his eyes again and tries to get to it again. As he slowly, lets the feeling move its way up his body. And, you know, basically on some, he basically feels the energy slowly but surely, run its way from just his back to his arms to his legs, up his spine to the rest of his body. And it's hard to describe, but it kind of feels like a calming feeling, but also kind of empowering. Kind of like after you get done with a very hard workout that you thought that you wouldn't be able to finish. That's kind of what it feels like. As I ain't even gonna cap, as he's doing this on some, he kind of hears the door swing open as he looks over to the side fast as hell. As, Inko basically comes in as she's like, Mitsuki's on the phone. I think that you owe her an apology. As, he kind of hears on the other side, Mitsuki saying, no, I don't think that's necessary. Bakugo should have expected this to happen eventually and stopped being a damn idiot all the time. As, through the phone, he could kind of hear, that nigga Bakugo getting hit as he's like, he kind of insults her back as she's like, I will literally put you in the ground. As, Inko kind of just says, I insist, seriously though. Even though the situation could have been avoided, I still feel like it was dealt with in the wrong way. And I feel like he should apologize. As, Mitsuki kind of says, yeah, same thing for Bakugo. As, they kind of both apologize to each other and each other's parents also. As, I ain't even gonna cap, after they apologize and everything, Izuku gives a more formal apology, whilst, Bakugo gives a more, yeah, I guess I'm sorry type of apology. Like a non-sincere apology. But I ain't even gonna cap. Time skip. Throughout the rest of middle school, eventually Bakugo does heal. And Izuku does try to fight back normally, but he kind of notices he doesn't have as much control over his physical body. I mean, yeah, he's still fast and everything and, physically fit. He's a peak human. He's in peak human condition and everything like that. It's just there's something about it that he can't put his hand on. It's it's not the same. Every now and again, he'd start to slowly get visions. He doesn't know what they are, but they're just moments of him blacking out. And he knows it's not just him just randomly thinking of something due to the fact that people literally have to, help him whenever he blacks out and has these memories. Depending on how long they are depends on whether or not he loses his balance, too. So that means whenever he has these, memories or visions or whatever the hell they are, he can sometimes temporarily lose his balance and pass out. And eventually he ended up getting it to the point of understanding it's some type of mystical energy. And if he controls it a right type of way, he can empower his body and things like that. Sorry about that. Oh my goodness. Why do they keep texting? He keep texting. Give me a second, y'all. Alright, I'm back. I I just turned off my notifications for texts and everything because, I don't want anything to happen and just something pops up and me getting flagged or something like that. But nah, like I was saying on some, right? Um, yeah, he kind of noticed that he can control it throughout his body and, physically make himself stronger. And the better this control becomes, the stronger he's able to get. And the more he's able to, reinforce his body to do different types of things. Also, he notices that he's able to do it inside of specific ways to be able to get his body to work inside of different, more athletic ways and not just all for brute strength. Okay, so a few months later, eventually they're graduating and everything like that. He gets an entire another spiel from Bakugo about, being weak and being quirkless and blah, 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 blah. And honestly, he doesn't have time for it. He decided to keep this to himself for the most part. Like, he's not hiding it or anything. Like, he's not going out of his way to be like, oh, I don't have a quirk. But he's also not making it known to people that he has a quirk, too. So, I ain't even gonna cap. On top of this, he's also noticed the more that these abilities have been, progressing on some, the more, like, calm and cool-headed he is. And it's less like anger or frustration or other emotions he feels. It's kind of like disappointment or even annoyance, which stops him from fighting against a lot of people. So, I ain't even gonna cap. He leaves the school on some. He's kind of bummed out on some. The reason he's bummed out is because school was supposed to let out a lot earlier, but now he's going to be late. He wanted to actually get something from the store while he was making his way, but it was, a limited edition type of item. So he had to get there as, early as possible. And usually school lets out for him at like 3:25, but it ended up letting out at like 3:35 for some reason. As it ended up making him late. As I ain't even gonna cap, while he's making his way, what is it called? While he's making his way down the street on some, he kind of, feels a very bad feeling. As when he's about to go down, like above this, or not above, while he's about to go over this bridge on some, he kind of looks as he sees something moving. As I'm going to change story a little bit here. When he looks closer on some, he sees a mangled dead corpse just being like broken and like just like destroyed by the sludge villain. As I ain't even gonna cap, this nigga Deku kind of just looks at this as he's just in pure shock. He's never seen anything like this. He's never seen someone like die directly in front of his eyes. I mean, yeah, he's been to funerals, but this is like nothing like the others. As when he goes to turn around and run away, he kind of, finds the sludge villain saying, "Hey, kid, stop." As he slowly turns around on some shit, right? As the sludge villain kind of, slowly lets go of the body and lets the body kind of just fall to the ground. As... Give me a second. Okay, like I was saying, he lets the body fall to the ground, right? And as he does that on some, he's kind of, what is it called? Give me a second, I have to think, because that alarm threw me all the way off. Okay, so I remember. Alright, so he kind of, looks at him as he's like, if you go any further, I will attack you, and you won't be getting out of this alive. As, when Izuku kind of hears this on something, he kind of, begins to, like, hyperventilate a little bit as he says, "Don't even think about screaming." As when he says that on something, right? On something, right? He basically goes to, attack Izuku and wrap himself around him. But for some reason, as soon as he goes to attack Izuku, he jumps back fast as hell. Like, maybe like 30, 40 feet. Literally. As when he goes to jump back that far on some shit, he kind of completely weaves that nigga. As the sludge villain is like, "I thought I told you not to move." As, Deku kind of hears him, but like his voice is muffled as his legs are shaking and shit, right? As when this is happening on some shit, right? The sludge villain keeps trying to get him, but as the sludge villain, keeps trying to get him, Izuku's like slowly jumping off, like, slowly like making his way back around, like basically avoiding this nigga. But he's inside of so much shock, it's like off of instinct. It's not him actually moving necessarily. It's more or less his body just moving for him. As I ain't even gonna cap on some shit, right? As he does that for the last time, he kind of gets grabbed by the foot on some shit, right? As when he kind of tries to get his foot out, he kind of notices he gets pulled in fast as hell. As he puts his hands against the ground and slowly tries to like crawl away or like somehow like get away from the nigga. But the more that he tries, he kind of sees the harder it becomes to try and, actually full on get away from him. As he notices this on some shit, right? He kind of, thinks this is the end on some shit. He kind of, closes his eyes and, gets ready for the pain of probably being like, crushed and killed like that other dude. As when he closes his eyes, he kind of hears a voice from above say, "Detroit, smash!" As, he kind of goes flying away a little bit, right? Not flying away enough for him to, like, actually hurt himself, but flying away onto the point where, like, when he goes flying, he's not going a small distance. But, nah, right? So, he kind of slowly begins to get up as he looks back and he's just, like, completely shocked. As he sees it's that dude, All Might. So, when he sees it's All Might on some, right? He's kind of, shocked. He's like, his like eyes are like wide on some, right? He kind of like just looks completely shocked. As All Might kind of says, inside of his like heroic sounding voice, "Are you hurt, citizen?" As what is it called? Deku just kind of says, "Nah." Or Izuku says, "Nah." As, he kind of says, "Now back to the villain." As he gets the little bottle on some shit and kind of, goes to put the fucking sludge villain inside the bottle. As Izuku's just nerding out, because don't get me wrong, he still nerds out liking, original canon on something, right? As when he's nerding out on some shit, right? And after, All Might's done with him, he looks over at, Izuku as he's like, do you want to autograph? As, Izuku kind of just says, "Of course," and kind of, gives him, his hero book on some with a Sharpie as he writes his autograph on there on some. As, on some, All Might kind of says, what is it called? He says, "Have a good day, citizen. Unfortunately, I'm busy, so I can't have a conversation with you." As he goes to jump up, as Izuku says, "Wait," and by accident, he kind of, ends up grabbing onto this nigga, kind of trying to, like, get him to stop. As, inside of original canon, everything that happened inside of original canon happened. As Izuku has a different reason for asking about, does he think a quirkless person could become a hero? His reasoning here is because he wants to know on some if all the hard work that he put in and everything that he did before he, gained this ability, if all of that was useless. And even then, he still doesn't think he could be useful, because as far as it is, his level of, chakra control, it's slightly above peak human. It's not strong enough to actually beat someone up that is like a strong enough villain. As, All Might kind of, tells him that he could become something more useful, like a firefighter or a police officer. But the chances of him being able to be a hero whilst being quirkless is low, and he'd probably be risking people's lives more than potentially saving or preventing death. As, this kind of crushes, Izuku on some shit, right? As he kind of, looks downwards on some shit inside of sadness or some shit, right? As when he looks down inside of sadness, All Might basically, he ends up, this is after he went into Small Might, by the way. I forgot to put that into plot. Just imagine I said anything about that, right? But yeah, he kind of, goes to jump off again on some shit, right? And yeah, he does all of his work for, his time limit on some shit. Izuku kind of, slowly leaves on some shit. He's like disappointed. He's just defeated, gang. Like, he doesn't know what to do. His favorite hero basically just told him, if you don't have a quirk or a quirk that is useless, you're basically like, you can do small things, but you can't really make a big difference. You're going to have to just work inside of a low-end job and hope you can get by. And that kind of just makes him feel some type of way. Because even in those communities on some, people are probably still like going to have quirks and everything, which is going to probably make him feel bad due to the fact that he doesn't have a quirk. They can probably do his job 1,000 times better. And imagine those supporters. So he kind of, walks towards, towards the glass on top of the building that he is on. Because I'm going to say, like, there's glass on some... Wait, give me a second. I'll be right back. I'm back. But, like I was going to say, right? He kind of looks over into the mirror on some, right? And, that sadness, it doesn't turn into resentment, but it kind of just turns into anger for himself on some, right? As he just begins to, like, cry. And when I say cry, I mean, like, he's crying hard, and he's balling up his fists on some shit. And his fists are, like, bleeding. That's how hard. But, like, it's not like before. It's, like, it's a lot harder. It's, like, blood is literally dripping from his knuckles inside of rapid, like, succession on some, right? As when he looks into the mirror, he kind of, gasps inside of shock as he slowly backs up. As he kind of looks closer on some. As when he gets closer, he notices two things. His eyes feel weird. And also on some shit, it also feels like he's, like, seeing things differently. So when he looks closer on some shit, he sees this inside of his eyes. As, he kind of touches the bottom of his eye and kind of, like, brings it downwards. As he's kind of confused. It seems like he can see in a higher definition. Everything seems, like, slightly slower to him and everything. But his movements are so much quicker and better. But as soon as it, came into being, sooner it, ended up deactivating on some shit, right? As he tries to get it on for a couple of minutes, but he notices it's not working. And when he realizes that on some shit, right? He kind of, hears an explosion as he sees smoke slowly rising inside the background. As he decides on some shit to, kind of, go and check out what the hell that is. As when he does go to check to see what the hell it is, he kind of sees that nigga Bakugo kind of, what is it called, being suffocated by the sludge villain. As the sludge villain says, everybody stand back. If any of you get if any of you get too close, I will kill this kid. As, all the heroes are trying to get the crowd under control on some shit and figure out a way to, what is it called, get Bakugo out. As when Izuku sees that it's Bakugo, even though, he retaliated a lot, he still cares about Bakugo. And, that's Mitsuki's son on some shit. So if he let him die, he's thinking on some shit. Mitsuki would never, forgive him. As inside of his head on some shit, he's kind of thinking it's time to man up and get to it, whether or not I'm scared. As he decides to run full speed on some shit, right? As he gets past the heroes on some shit, as instead of an original plot on some shit, when he collides with the sludge villain, right? That nigga Bakugo goes flying out from how fast he is. Because he's not like a blur type of fast, but with the Sharingan speed boost on some shit, that nigga pushes that nigga the fuck out. But now the problem on some shit is, he's stuck inside the sludge on some shit, right? As, when he's stuck in the sludge and shit, everything else inside of original plot happens about the same. It inspires All Might, and he decides to, what is it called, break Izuku, break the sludge villain off of Izuku, and, surpass his time limit and everything like that. But yeah, on some shit, right? After that, on some shit, when All Might, everything else also stays inside of canon. But when that nigga All Might decides to ask that nigga Izuku, would he take all for one? One for all, not all for one. One for all, because all for one is an entirely different nigga. That nigga looks at him on some shit as he breathes in and breathes out slowly on some shit. He looks All Might directly in the eyes with a determined look as he says, no. As this shocks the hell out of All Might. That's where I'm going to leave this what if right now, you guys. Yeah, I'm leaving you little niggas on a cliffhanger, gang. I know what you're saying. Isn't this the second part? Shouldn't you be putting us somewhere near, the entrance exams? I mean, yeah. But I'm irresponsible, so I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to hope that I get back to this. If you guys like this, like or subscribe if you want to. What I really want you to do is join our Discord. Bye-bye. Join our Discord. Bye-bye. So, do that if you want to and everything. Yeah, have a good day. And try to be safe. Bye-bye.